People want to govern themselves. In this part of Spain called Catalonia, lots of people want to secede from the rest of Spain.
Lawmakers in Catalonia declared independence.
The vast majority of Catalonians who voted in this referendum supported that. But Spanish authorities didn't even want them to vote.
The Spanish government deployed thousands of police to stop the independence referendum. They assaulted polling stations. They beat senior citizens and young people.
They just wanted to vote.
Michael Strong says parts of countries should be allowed to secede. For years, he's negotiated with officials in Honduras, trying to establish free zones where taxes would be low and rules simple. 5 years ago, he told me, we're close to a deal. You suckered me years ago. This was about to happen in Honduras.
It happens at the pace of government, and the pace of government is slow. We've got good news, but until it's done, it's not done.
This is a drawing of what a free zone might look like if it's approved. It would show the world and the rest of Honduras that with simple rules and low taxes, people could prosper the way they've prospered in places like Hong Kong and Singapore.
Hong Kong and Singapore were two of the poorest jurisdictions in the world in 1960. Now they're two of the richest.
One of the most exciting places in the world, Hong Kong.
They prospered because they were able to govern themselves and ignore burdensome rules imposed by their parent country. However, most people around the world are not free to try those experiments.
Most of the world's 7 billion human beings are stuck in nation states that are de facto prisons. We need to allow for a lot more bits of good government to pop up and to liberate all of these billions of people from terrible governments.
These Kurdish people want independence from Iraq. For years, they were persecuted by other ethnic groups and most recently by ISIS. In response, the Kurds formed their own army, defended their territory, and then helped drive ISIS out of Iraq. Now the Kurds want to secede from Iraq, but no other government will support them. The United States says it would disrupt the region.
Most leaders are afraid they'd have secession movements all over the place. And in fact,
they might.
And they might.
Some left-wing Californians hate Donald Trump so much, they want California to secede from the United States. Their campaign videos show their naive goals.
California can be silly and stupid, but we need lots of experiments. It's funny, in the world of science, we believe in freedom to experiment. Now we need to go to the world of government and believe in freedom to experiment. If California was independent and had to compete with the rest of the United States, it would have to up its game. And conversely, the US might have to up its game. Cultural wars are bitter and vicious. And if Alabama wants to do Alabama's culture and San Francisco wants to do San Francisco's culture, I say let them go their own direction. Let people be.
Let people be. What a concept. It's Halloween. The media say, better watch out.
Halloween is the deadliest holiday.
Within minutes, this little pirate costume disintegrated.
People are injecting gummies just like this these days with drugs.
Really? That's what we should worry about?
Trick or treat.
No, that's absurd. Those stories have been around for decades. They're not true. Though adults find plenty of other things to worry about. What do you fear on Halloween?
I'm scared of bats.
Bats?
Yes.
Do you really think they might really hurt you?
I think so, because their wings are flapping and they're really long. Sharks.
I hate rats, man.
I guess, like, creepy old people.
Uh-oh. Does that include me?
I am terrified of spiders.
She believes many Americans are killed by spiders.
I'm gonna go with at least 1,000.
Actually, 3, says the National Safety Council.
I have an irrational fear of balloons. Horses.
And you think you're more likely to be killed by a horse than other risks?
Probably not, but our fears are often not very logical.
Exactly. People fear
anything that's creepy and unknown, right?
I'm super afraid of, like, clowns.
Clowns.
Why clowns?
They're just a little freaky. I'm scared they're gonna chase after me.
I just saw it, so I think I'm in that kind of clown. Oh, yeah, I think that's what I'm scared of right now.
Americans worry about so much. What might actually physically harm you?
Gosh, what couldn't kill you nowadays? Like murder, maybe. Everybody's crazy these days.
Mean people.
Trump.
What scares you?
Heights.
Why heights?
Because I can't control it.
Aha! There's an insight. Losing control adds to our fears. In cars, we feel in control. But flying scares many people.
I got on a plane today and I was freaking out.
Hold on. There are more than 90 deaths a day from car crashes. But no one's died for years in a commercial American plane.
I'm scared of getting hit by the subway.
There's a lot of things that scare me today. There's a lot of things going on in our world that is scary.
No, wait. Despite all the media hype about 1,000 risks, life today is safer than ever before. It's not good to fear so much because fear is a friend of big government. Whenever there's an accident, the media push politicians to say there ought to be a law.
Ban all consumer fireworks.
And worried people agree.
No, I don't think they should be allowed unless they're done by professionals.
Vicious dogs need to be regulated.
They'll bite you and grab you and kill you.
We are in grave danger, frankly, in this country because of terrorism.
Terrorism is the big scare now. But even including 9/11, death from terrorism is rare. The National Safety Council says more people die crossing the street, in bathtubs, or tripping over furniture. Here in Times Square, the risk of terrorism is probably higher, but this man understands it's still a small risk.
Because if you look at the odds, you look at the numbers, it's very small.
The big risks in America today are eating too much, drinking too much, smoking, and driving recklessly. What do you worry about?
Bad drivers.
You know, that's the most sensible answer I've gotten here all day. Happy Halloween. Enjoy the moment. Life in America is safer than ever before. What's the best way to fight a war? Afghanistan is now America's longest war ever. President Trump says he'll send in more soldiers. But this man says that's not the route to victory.
I've laid out this plan, this alternative, that comes in at less than 8% of what the Pentagon is spending.
Eric Prince founded Blackwater, a private military contractor. Contractors train people how to shoot accurately, respond to dangerous situations. This is a promotional film for the contractor that now owns Prince's old training ranges. The U.S. military pays private contractors to do all kinds of things. Provide security, deliver mail to remote bases, send in backup to rescue soldiers. The government admits that private contractors do the jobs well, often for half what the military would spend.
We did a helicopter resupply mission where we embarked our helicopters on board a U.S. military supply ship. And we showed up to do that job with 2 helicopters and 8 people, replacing the Navy, who was doing it with 2 helicopters and 35 people.
Why would the Navy use 35 people?
The admiral that says, I need 35 people to do that mission, didn't have to pay for them. And when you get a free good, you use a lot more of it.
Government not only wastes money, it does things slowly.
In Afghanistan right now, a troop in contact, fighting for their lives, can't drop a bomb without a lawyer sitting in Qatar, 1,000+ miles away, to give them permission to drop that bomb. That is just not a serious way to wage warfare.
But that's done because bombs were dropped in the wrong place, killing civilians, and we made new enemies.
War is hell. War is risky and it's dangerous, but if we're going to entrust our people to put them into harm's way, you have to have the confidence to back them up to support them doing it.
Bureaucracy also makes it hard for the military to adapt to changing threats.
We've spent close to $1 trillion, largely using equipment that was designed to fight against the Soviet Union, but it's been misused fighting against pickup trucks and people living in local villages.
You'd think if you spent a lot to get the Soviets, it would work on terrorists.
A supersonic jet that's designed to go state on state and with standoff missile capability and all the rest is not necessary for finding effectively enemies that are living in caves or operating from a pickup truck. It's a totally different...
The military adjusts.
No, they do not. Clearly, in 16 years of warfare, the Army has never adjusted how they do deployments, They've never made them smaller and more nimble. You could actually do all the counterinsurgency missions over Afghanistan with propeller-driven aircraft.
President Trump decided not to take Prince's suggestions. I think I know a reason why. People just don't like you, don't like the idea of mercenaries.
The media doesn't like markets, period. But markets have a way of providing things when government can't. The Flying Tigers in World War II.
The Flying Tigers, brave volunteers who blaze a new path to glory.
Before America entered World War II, some American pilots made extra money fighting the Japanese in China. These Flying Tigers were considered heroes.
They even made a John Wayne movie about it back then. It was not such a disparaged topic always.
In fact, mercenaries helped create America. Jamestown, Plymouth, Massachusetts Bay all paid for private security. In the Revolutionary War, the Continental Congress authorized privateers, privately owned boats, to fight the British ships. Privateers raided 600 ships and kept the loot. Although most private contracting has gone well, in Iraq there were violent exceptions.
Blackwater security guards shot more than 30 unarmed Iraqis.
10 years ago,
security guards from the firm Blackwater opened fire on a crowded square in Baghdad. 14 Iraqi civilians died.
4 of Prince's soldiers were convicted of voluntary manslaughter.
The fact is, the guys did more than 100,000 missions, protective missions, in dangerous war zones, and less than 1/2% of all those missions did the guys ever discharge a firearm.
Wholesale corruption and finally murder, a full-fledged criminal enterprise.
Grossly inaccurate. The sad thing is, the hardcore anti-war left went after the troops in Vietnam. In the Iraq War, largely Afghanistan, they went after contractors.
They killed so many innocent civilians in so many different areas.
Contractors providing a good and service to support the U.S. military mission, vilified, demonized because they were for-profit companies.
Prince eventually sold Blackwater. Then he came up with a new idea, fighting pirates. Remember that Tom Hanks movie about a ship hijacked by pirates?
I'm the captain. I'm the captain now.
Such piracy was once common.
Somali pirates have seized 8 vessels.
The film The Somali Project documents Prince's plan to create a private army that would fight pirates. He got the United Arab Emirates to fund it. The establishment hated the idea. The UN called it a brazen violation of its arms embargo. But Prince went ahead anyway.
Now we're going to start how to wear boots. Put on your socks. Put on all the socks. Everybody.
The private army went after the hijackers' bases.
We'll seize 3 different objective areas.
The cameras caught that as it happened. Whenever pirates came close to shore, the mercenary army attacked them. They freed lots of people who'd been held hostage by pirates. In a few years, the private army, plus private ship owners finally arming themselves, drastically reduced piracy. In 2010, Somali pirates took more than 1,000 hostages. In 2014, no hostages. Did you know about this? I didn't. It got no publicity. The media do not want to report good things about private militaries. You've had all this success. You've made money doing things more efficiently. But I would say most Americans hate you for it. They despise Eric Prince.
The most notorious defense contractor of them all, Blackwater, and its founder, Eric Prince.
Eric Prince.
He really is the poster child for everything wrong about the military-industrial complex. He's just horrible.
It's largely ignorance, okay? This idea that it's immoral to try to make money or to try to innovate or to build a better mousetrap. I mean, innovation is what's made America.
They say it's immoral to make money killing people.
Well, preparing U.S. military people to do their best on their mission is not immoral. What is their better solution?
Their solution is to take the profit out, have it run by government.
And that's why we spent close to $1 trillion and are still losing.
This fall's hurricane damage is severe. What should the federal government do?
This massive rebuilding effort
will end up being one of the biggest ever.
We'll be seeking resources from the Congress to make sure that disaster relief is available.
Politicians from the areas that were hit always say, give us lots of money.
We do need and will need federal resources.
Texas Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee wants about $150 billion just for Texas. So far, Congress has agreed to a portion of that. Of course, only the federal government can send in the military and other first responders. After Irma, 13,000 National Guard soldiers helped rescue and evacuate people. This is the kind of emergency response we expect from the federal government. But rebuilding afterward? Why is that the federal government's responsibility?
We're going to have to restore a lot of housing. Our infrastructure has to be restored.
Yes, but why is that a federal job? Washington has no money of its own. Anything it spends is taken from states and local governments, from people who would probably have been smarter about spending it locally. The idea that it's always the federal government's responsibility is new. Until recently, businesses and charities handled most disaster response. In 1906, the massive San Francisco earthquake and fire that followed destroyed 80% of San Francisco. Despite this vast amount of destruction, the city was rebuilt quickly. The population recovered to pre-quake levels within just 3 years. This happened because rebuilding was done by residents, charities, and businesses, not by a bureaucratic government. The disaster even created some opportunities. All San Francisco's banks were destroyed, but one banking entrepreneur reopened quickly, giving loans to all sorts of people who needed help. His bank grew to be the Bank of America. 7 years later, the Midwest was hit with a huge storm now called the Great Easter Flood. 11 states flooded. Rising water and tornadoes killed 600 people. The federal government did very little, but businesses stepped in. The National Cash Register Company built 300 boats to rescue flood victims and then provided meals and shelter for thousands of people. The role of businesses after disaster is seldom appreciated. Yes, they want to make a profit, but they also want to help neighbors and they want a good reputation.
Giving out water and ice.
After recent hurricanes, big box stores like Home Depot and Walmart were quick to bring in fresh water, batteries, and food. In Puerto Rico, Coca-Cola donated $1 million, PepsiCo $2 million. Elon Musk offers to rebuild Puerto Rico's electricity grid. Researchers found that after Hurricane Katrina, businesses and charities provided much more help than FEMA did. A few years ago, Oklahoma took a big hit. For 3 days, tornadoes tore through the state. FEMA spent lots of money to help rebuild, but even NBC's anchors noticed the private charities did a better job.
If you're waiting for the government, you're going to be in for an awful long wait. The Baptist men, they're going to get it done tomorrow.
The Baptist men got bulldozers and cleared tornado debris from more than 1,000 homes.
They brought in bobcats and bulldozers and chainsaws, and they just went to work.
Within days, the Baptists gave them a new home.
It was a mess out here, and they cleaned it up, and they've done that for our whole neighborhood.
All of a sudden, we hear hammering, and Maddie looks back, and she grabs my shoulder and look up, and they're already on our roof.
You have people driving through, handing you meals. People I didn't know would just walk up and give us money. It's just overwhelming to me that we were that taken care of.
For 200 years, when disasters hit, neighbors took care of neighbors. But now we hear a big storm requires big government. I say the head of the Baptist Charity has it right.
I don't think there's any kind of disaster that can take place that the nonprofit and faith-based groups cannot take care of.
EPA staffers were shocked to receive this email, obtained exclusively by CNN, which says, "We have been directed by the administrator to withdraw the restrictions." The proposed protection of that pristine area was being removed.
Oh no, that pristine area filled with these gorgeous salmon will be obliterated by a mine. At least that's the impression you get watching CNN's two-part exclusive. I would have believed that, except I happen to have reported on that mine as part of a special for Fox on the green tyranny pursued by today's rich environmentalists.
The proposed Pebble mine is a disaster waiting to happen.
That ad comes from one of America's richest environmental groups, the NRDC, the National Resources Defense Council.
Imagine this natural paradise destroyed.
The environmental groups ran these ads. They made people believe on TV that everything was going to die.
The truth, it turns out, is that the mine wouldn't even be on Alaska's Bristol Bay. The proposed mine wouldn't even be 10 miles away or 20 miles or even 50 miles. It would be 100 miles away. Did CNN mention that? No, never. Instead, CNN made EPA Director Scott Pruitt look evil by suggesting right after a meeting with the mine's boss, he gave the mine a go-ahead.
He made that decision without a briefing from any of EPA's scientists or experts.
What? Shocking! Without consulting scientists, Pruitt's going to let a company massacre these fish? But in fact, he hadn't given the mine a green light. He's simply allowing them to submit an official proposal. Obama's EPA had rejected the mine before it even looked at an environmental impact statement. That's unheard of. The EPA normally asks for that environmental research, examines it, and then accepts or rejects it. Doesn't reject things without looking at them. Pruitt's allowing the review process to go forward was proper. CNN's reporter did at least speak with the mine's CEO, although he sneered at the boss's reaction to the decision.
It comes with no apologies.
And do you think it was not wrong that Mr. Pruitt did not even look at what the work had been done?
Not a science decision. It's a process decision.
This looks like a head of a gold mine went into the new administrator and got him to reverse what an entire department had worked on for years.
The reporter was accurate there. The entire department had worked on killing the mine for years. They were colluding with zealots at environmental groups. Lots of those people want no mines built anywhere. Don't believe me? Listen to my interview with their spokesman. There are some mines where NRDC says, great, go ahead.
Well, it's not up to us.
Are there any?
Yeah, it's not up to us to greenlight mines. But what
Are there any you don't complain about?
Oh, yeah, sure.
We asked him for some names. We're still waiting. CNN also made claims like this.
The mine could potentially create a footprint bigger than the island of Manhattan and nearly as deep as the Grand Canyon, according to the EPA.
It could, but it won't. The actual Pebble proposal is much smaller. Pebble's CEO isn't some monster destroyer of the earth. He's a Democrat who ran environmental policy for Bill Clinton and Al Gore. CNN never mentioned that either. Instead, the reporter called him
a guy who wants to mine gold in an area that many scientists believe will destroy one of the most pristine sockeye salmon spawning grounds in the whole world. What am I missing?
What you're missing is if they're right, then we won't get a permit.
Right. But explaining that now the mine must begin the EPA's long and detailed environmental review wouldn't fit CNN's theme. Evil Trump appointee ravages environment. We asked CNN, why didn't you mention that, and that the mine would be 100 miles away? They didn't get back to us. If environmental zealots and their sycophants in the media get their way, America will be a place where there is no mining, no new pipelines, no oil drilling, no new anything. People used to say NIMBY. You can build, just not in my backyard. Now it's banana. Build absolutely nothing anywhere near anybody.
A tax break to the rich.
Slashing taxes on the super rich?
Unfair, they say. The Republican tax plan favors rich people. And that's especially wrong because the super rich greedily take so much that other Americans have less. But is that true?
My goal in life is to be the best part of your day.
Jim Caruso's rich. He took over a bankrupt brewery and made it successful by creating a bunch of what I would think were absurd new craft beers like Blood Orange Ale.
At the end of the day, you can sit back and sip a beer and just appreciate the beauty of life.
Caruso now employs 100 people. His company's worth more than $50 million. Thanks to Flying Dog Brewery, he's now richer than most.
Millionaires and billionaires.
People on the left say
it's unfair. You will have unequal outcomes, and I would argue that it's possible we all benefit from that. For example, somebody decides that their pursuit of happiness means being a doctor. They spend 12 years in school, so I have an excellent doctor to serve me. Somebody else might want to be a world-class tattoo artist. These result in different outcomes for people.
On average, the doctor will make more money than the tattoo artist, but some Americans are 1,000 times richer than others.
The top 1% has earned 85% of all new income.
The top fraction of earners has just about half the assets in this country. This ticks people off. They view it as evil.
Think about it this way. Last year I saw that there were 1 billion Apple devices actively being used. And last month I saw that Apple was the first company to be worth $800 billion.
Today, Apple is going to reinvent the phone.
I was curious, how much was Steve Jobs worth in 2011 when he passed away at too early of an age? $10 billion. I did some quick calculations, rough math.
Let's look at those calculations. Steve Jobs earned $10 billion, but Apple sold more than 2 billion devices. That means Jobs collected about $5 for every device. Certainly your cell phone is worth more to you than $5. It must be, because you willingly paid several $100s for this.
I think Steve might have been underpaid here. The feeling tends to be that somebody like Steve Jobs took something away from everybody else. But what did Steve Jobs take from us? He had this idea, wouldn't it be great to have 1,000 songs in your pocket? One of the most massively important tools for productivity and communication in life. So it's that zero-sum game mentality that somehow people who create stuff are taking it away from other people, and that's simply inaccurate. It's not a zero-sum game. They're creating stuff that didn't exist before.
They are creating stuff, and unless they collude with government, they can get rich only by making our lives better. You ready for Thanksgiving? Before you eat that turkey, I want to bust one myth. You've heard about that Thanksgiving feast. Pilgrims and Indians sharing food. Sharing is nice in families and sometimes in small groups. But as Thanksgiving approaches, let's remember that when we Pilgrims first came to America, we almost starved.
People grew weak and thin. Some swelled with hunger.
That's because we settlers acted like Bernie Sanders wants us to act. We farmed collectively. The corporation that funded our expedition said, grow food together, divide the harvest equally. Bad idea. Communal farming creates what economists call the tragedy of the commons. Think about a nice piece of land that ranchers hold in common.
Anyone who wants to can bring their cattle to graze.
The tragedy is that no individual rancher is much motivated to try to preserve that land. In fact,
every rancher has the incentive to bring more and more cattle to the pasture. So they're going to continue to add cow after cow until the pasture is overgrazed and destroyed.
One way to demonstrate that is to run experiments like this one. This is now your property here. I assembled a group of people and told them the circle is your shared land. You can furnish it with trees, people, whatever. And they did.
Have a tree.
Then I put some fake coins on their property and told them each coin is worth $1. But if you can leave it in there for a minute, I'll give you $2. Each minute, it doubles in value. If they can wait, they can make much more money. Do they wait? Ready, set, go. Nobody waited? There was no reason to wait. Someone else would just grab your coins. Let's change the rules of the game. I divided the land into segments, so each person had his own property. Then we played the game again. Same rules. Every minute, the value doubles, except you can only take coins from your property. Go. Nobody's doing anything. Why are you waiting?
I want to reap the most benefit.
You didn't wait last time.
At that moment, I wanted it now, whereas this is going up and it's mine, you know?
Exactly. When you own property, you take care to preserve it, to allow it to keep producing good things. But we Pilgrims shared our land, so when the crops were ready to harvest, we did what these people did. Some of my neighbors sneaked out at night and grabbed extra food. Some picked corn before it was fully ready. The result?
By the spring, our food stores were used up.
The shortage of food was worse because of a second problem with the commons. When you share the results of your work, some people don't work hard.
For it let an opportunity for some to take advantage and leave the work to others.
Had that continued, Thursday would be known as Starvation Day. But fortunately, we were led not by Bernie Sanders or other commons-loving socialists, but by Governor William Bradford, who wrote in his diary,
"After much debate, I, William Bradford, assigned to every family a parcel of land."
He did what I did here. The result?
This had very good success, for it made all hands very industrious.
We brought in a harvest that was more than enough to feed us. After such a success, we never returned to shared planting.
Private property allowed us Pilgrims to prosper and have that feast we read about at school. So this Thanksgiving, if you have a good meal, thank private property. Every day it protects us from the tragedy of the commons.
It's a Monday morning and your Google alarm goes off. You get out of bed, woken up by the sounds of your favorite playlist. You go to the fridge to get a glass of orange juice, but the door won't open. An error message flashes up on the screen. You're in a rush, so you finish getting dressed and ready to go out. You go to brush your teeth, but another error message flashes across the bathroom mirror. You head out and get to the car, but the door won't open. You touch your phone to the handle again, but it still won't open. Okay, never mind, you think to yourself. You'll take the bus. You get to the bus stop down the road and quickly get aboard. You scan your phone against the ticket machine, but the light turns red. The bus won't go anywhere until you get off. You try calling work to let them know you're going to be late and that something strange is going on. Instead, you hear only a pre-recorded message letting you know that this service is currently unavailable and to check back in 72 hours. Feeling extremely irritated, you decide to give up on work and get breakfast instead. You stop by the local coffee shop, you place your order and scan your phone against the till. And once again, a light turns red as the girl behind the counter shakes her head and a security guard puts his hand on your shoulder and asks you to leave. You get back home and decide to Google what is going on. But Google isn't even working. Suddenly, every screen in the house starts displaying a message telling you that you have been suspended for 72 hours. And the fridge starts playing a recording of you laughing at a racist joke your friend made while you were watching The Walking Dead last night. Okay, so I know this might sound extreme and a little silly, but it really is the way things are going. Our lives are centered around technology. The average American spends over half their day staring at a screen, and over half of the US population use the internet to search for and even to apply for their job. And slowly but surely, the internet is becoming our place of work as well. And when you're not at work, well, it's arranging, ruling, and even becoming our social lives. Who are you if you don't have a Facebook profile? What are you if you don't have a LinkedIn? And how can I even date you if I can't swipe right? Seriously though, Google, Facebook, and Twitter pretty much own all of social media, and they are equally bad when it comes to censorship. You can be locked out of your Google Docs account if your writing violates the terms of service now. I've had friends go completely dark for weeks due to Facebook bans. And Twitter, well, they've wiped entire personalities off the face of their platform. And the government isn't helping much with this situation either. Germany have just introduced a law to fine Facebook over hate speech. And in the UK, Theresa May is looking into literal Minority Report style pre-crime technology to ensure you don't post any offensive memes in the first place. Don't even think about it. And as we have these ever more connected homes and networks, the scenario I mentioned earlier is seriously looking like more fact than fiction. You already can have a single smart device that controls all the gadgets in your home, from internet access to heating to lighting and even your fridge. Even credit referencing agencies, you know, the companies that banks cross-reference when you apply to open an account, have started verifying information and identities and making decisions based on active social media profiles. And you may think to yourself that no one could possibly want this insane Orwellian future, but its first stages are already in action. Internet companies are not above censoring or even just all-out removing users they don't like. Domain providers and hosting companies are already permanently banning sites like the Daily Stormer, while social media accounts regularly block users for up to a month, rendering them completely unable to even access their accounts in some cases. As the world becomes more connected, where does this end? Will we even need radical political activists to call up your employer to tell them about something you posted online? Or will Google one day do it for them over something you said in the privacy of your own home, albeit in front of your smart TV? The technology is there, and the political motives are growing. If you really take the time to read through the user agreements on the stuff we use every single day, you will be shocked. Your TV is always listening, as is your iPhone. Facebook accesses every other website you visit while you're logged in and tracks your movements around the net. Almost anyone can get access to your smartphone camera and turn it on remotely. And your entire access to the wider world, your one way to connect with the people who don't live at the end of your street, is entirely dependent on Zuckerberg's take on your political beliefs. I truly believe if this generation of young people raised on the internet do not band together and oppose government and corporate overreach into our personal lives and into controlling our free speech, we will grow to become an enslaved society. Not in the classical sense, not with chains or whips, but with blackmail and by fear of total banishment from the world through internet lockout. Think about all of the things you've ever said in front of your phone to date. Think about any time you've walked out of the shower with your laptop open on the desk. The amount of information people have collected on you could likely destroy your life and enslave you today. And soon enough, getting blocked for 72 hours might mean no TV, no internet, no coffee, and no communication with anyone. We could truly be looking at a future of total control and total censorship if we do not stand up for our rights now. And that means the rights of everyone, even those we hate. Because the individuals introducing these Orwellian web policies and these Orwellian laws are counting on you to not care about offensive websites like the Daily Stormer. They are counting on us to not read the long agreement notices before making an account. They are counting on us to not listen to UN proposals of global net control initiatives. They are counting on us to be complacent in all of this. Don't let them be right. So here's the thing.
We cannot better ourselves without being honest, and others cannot address their problems unless they know what those problems are. And this brings me now to the topic that I want to discuss. Girls. Young girls are having their futures sacrificed at the altar of political correctness. Women right now can do no wrong, and praising us has become a way to virtue signal. We hear it all the time. Follow your heart, women, they say. Do what feels right. Who cares what men think? Don't judge. You be a slut. Live your life. Be liberated. We hear this constantly said to us by everyone, by the media, by popular magazines, by our politicians, our schooling. It's everywhere. But little do women know, like the story of the child with the trophies and the fat person with the potential cardiovascular disease, there's also a cold, harsh, true reality at the end of this rainbow we're being sold. So instead of just telling you the nice things, I'm here to tell you the truth. Because women deserve to hear it and decide for themselves what kind of life they want to live. And I mean the full truth, not the Sex and the City, Cosmo magazine, mainstream media, Marxist propaganda truth, but the reality. So let's jump into it. Girls, first I want to start with a compliment, and a genuine one. You are extremely valuable and beautiful to a lot of people. Now, if I just finished the sentence there, that would be a truth that not a lot of people would be afraid to tell you. In fact, you've probably heard it time and time again. But what people are afraid to do is to finish that sentence. You are extremely valuable, but that value diminishes over time. And I don't mean the value of your soul or the kind deeds that you do, which can potentially be beautiful forever, but I mean your sexual market value and your desirability as a potential partner and wife. And you can go ahead and blow that off as something that you don't care about. You don't care about sexual market value or what men think of you. But the reality is that it is one of the most important assets of our lives as females. A stable marriage and children are statistically one of the highest predictors of happiness in a woman's life. And your chances of having either of those things diminish over time as you push them back for partying, for work, for education, or for finding yourself, whatever it may be. Good men tend to get married off fast, and they marry young women. As men grow older, they earn more money and become more stable and become more valuable on the dating market, and these men are going to be attracted to younger women. This attraction is completely rational. It's not bigoted or because of a hatred of older women. It's just a fact that younger women can have more healthier children. They are less of a divorce risk. They come with less emotional baggage, and men with younger wives even live longer. Women love strength and resources. Men value youth and fertility. These are age-old archetypes of warriors and mothers. And pairing the masculine with the feminine like this has secured our existence since the beginning of time. Obviously, it gets a bit more complicated than that, but the biggest thing you want to know as a woman is that you really do not want to be competing against 20-year-old girls for 30-year-old guys when you hit the age of 30, because you won't win, and it will just become harder and harder and harder for you to find a guy to settle down with, as all of the good men who want to settle down and get married do just that, but with younger women. And I'm not just making this stuff up. If you want to dig into the research regarding this, I've put all of the sources in the description. Here's what it comes down to. Men are born poor and grow rich, and women are born rich and die poor. As the left is so fond of saying, privilege is invisible to those who have it. And since women are born into wealth, they don't understand what it is like to be poor, and they do not appreciate the gifts they have until they're taken from them. Not taking things for granted is really hard when it's something that has always been that way. Have you ever seen or heard of stories where someone will win the lottery, and instead of helping their life, it absolutely destroys it? They spend the money too quickly and foolishly, and end up in a pit of loneliness, alcoholism, and an empty wallet. Unfortunately, that is not a rare story, and for girls who are born rich and spend their wealth too quickly, it's even worse. A man's wealth is measured in accomplishments, strength, and resources, and men are born ignorant, weak, and destitute. A woman's wealth is measured in youth, fertility, and chastity, and women are born young, fertile, and chaste. A man can accumulate wealth and power over time, but a woman cannot become younger or more chaste. Now, you're probably thinking to yourself, whoa, Lauren, I came here for the honest truth, not some freaky, preachy religious lesson about virginity. Well, the truth is that sometimes suggestions that are made by religion and tradition are backed up by research as being good decisions, and this just happens to be one of them. There are heaps of studies done on the topic of women and promiscuity, and the results are damning. Obviously, there are givens, the increased chances of STDs, potential pregnancy, and single motherhood, which is basically a death sentence when it comes to trying to form new successful relationships in the dating market. But even if you ladies play it super safe, you've got the birth control, the condoms going, and all of that, despite popular belief in what Cosmo magazine will tell you, sex has serious psychological impacts on women that will change your relationships forever. Statistically, every man a woman sleeps with past one adds to the increased chances that her marriage will later end in divorce. A woman with just one previous sexual partner is an equivalent divorce risk to a man with 19. Promiscuity has devastating impacts on women's ability to pair bond and form lasting, stable relationships that she needs for her happiness. And this isn't a fact that I like. It's not a fact that I want to be true. I want people to be happy and free to make all of the choices and decisions they want without consequences. But the reality is there are lasting consequences, and I can't change that. And women need to understand the consequences of their choices and make informed decisions based on that. And luckily that is already happening. Women are starting to understand that maybe all of this sexual liberation wasn't the brightest idea, and that in the long run, a rich family life surrounded by love and children is preferable to being a cat lady. Girls are watching what has happened to the generations before them. They're seeing their older sisters and the people in the grades ahead of them and the celebrities that they used to like go down a path of promiscuity and desoulment, and they're watching them become increasingly unhappy. And these aren't isolated anecdotes either. Since the rise of third wave feminism, women's self-reported happiness has been on a measurable decline. So now we're starting to see a trend of young women espousing more traditional conservative values, and that's great in my opinion, because they understand what responsible life decisions they need to make in order to be happier, and they're doing that. Even celebrities are jumping on the bandwagon as they learn from past failures and from friends' experiences. Just take this article from the New York Post, for example. I lost my virginity at 16 to a douchebag in an indoor sports center. It was a cold and unemotional experience. He dumped me the next day. I've had one relationship and more than a handful of hookups since. I have always struggled with intimacy, so after one more disastrous sexual relationship that led nowhere, I decided that I was going to take my time and wait for some form of commitment before I jumped into bed. It's essentially a sex detox to clean the negativity out of my system. Despite her friends saying she's too traditional, Jo says, "I'm happier now." Of course, the tragedy here is that a born-again virgin isn't a real thing, but it just goes to show that all of these women are beginning to understand just how far they were led astray. And this may seem like a weird, unconventional suggestion of a way to live, but in a world where happiness is dwindling among women, where depression is on the rise, and where people are searching for meaning at the bottom of a wine glass, why not give it a shot? We plan for our education, we plan for our careers, hell, we even plan our outfits down to a T in the mornings. And we try to make responsible decisions so that we succeed in these areas of our life. So why wouldn't we try to do this in one of the most important areas of our life? The intimate relationships that we have, and the families that we form, and the grandchildren that we'll have that will fill our golden years with love and joy. Why would we not plan for that? Not only will making more responsible decisions surrounding relationships make women happier, it will create for healthier, happier children and a better world as well. Many of these things that I've stated in this video about sexual market value and relationships may be deemed hate facts, and they may be things that we don't want to hear, but I personally think it's something that girls need to hear, because it's not fair that women are being blinded to the wealth that they have until it's too late. So I really hope that some of you ladies will listen to what I've had to say and maybe practice it in your own life, and at least even if you don't, you have the knowledge to say that you made an informed decision to go down the liberation path, because you're free to do that too. But overall, I just want you guys to remember that I am not trying to ruin your fun. The people in your life who are making traditional suggestions are not trying to hold you back. They're looking out for you. They want you to be able to have healthy, lifelong relationships. And I know I'm going to get flack for this video. I know I'm going to be called a hateful, bigoted person, but honestly, I don't care, because I would rather tell someone the cold, hard truth and watch them have a happy, successful, meaningful life than lie to them to feel good in the moment about myself, to feel I virtue signaled in the moment, because that's selfish. That's extremely selfish that people are lying to women simply to virtue signal their progressivism, because you're ruining people's lives when you do that. I'm looking at you, Cosmo magazine. I'm looking at you, modern sexual education in schools. It's not conducive to a good society, and it's not conducive to making women happier. And I just hope that some ladies who listen to this video, at least one, will maybe get something out of this and have a happier future. That's the only goal here. So thank you so much for watching, guys, and I hope you have a wonderful week. I'll see you next time. Hey everyone, okay, so as you may know by now, Patreon has kicked me off of their website, essentially eviscerating the majority of my income. You may be wondering, what could their reason for doing this be? Well, let me just read you their email. Hi Lauren, my name is Max, and I'm a member of the Trust and Safety team at Patreon. Here at Patreon, we believe in freedom of speech. We are creating a platform that empowers creators to share and debate ideas. When ideas cross into action, though, we sometimes must take a closer look at what our creators are doing with the funds they earn through Patreon. It appears that you are currently raising funds in order to take part in activities that are likely to cause loss of life. We have therefore decided to remove your page from Patreon and paid out your final balance of $95 to you. We understand that this will come as a disappointment. Please know that we have come to this decision after a long review process and will not consider an appeal. Thank you for your understanding. Raising funds in order to take part in activities that are likely to cause loss of life. That's a pretty freaking incredible claim there, Patreon. That should take some pretty incredible evidence behind it, shouldn't it? But what did you provide as evidence? Absolutely nothing. Absolutely freaking nothing. Now, they've already stated that their shutdown of my account is not up for review, and that they're not doing this for ideological reasons, even though it is quite clear that that's exactly what they're doing. If you want to go ahead and prove me wrong, Patreon, reinstate my account, because I am doing none of the things that you've accused me of doing. And if you truly do have concerns about people raising money that may lead to the loss of life, then why do you keep pages up like It's Going Down, a radical left-wing organization that promote violence against police? It doesn't quite add up, does it? Oh wait, it does actually add up. It's because you guys at Patreon actually have employees that quite publicly support Antifa, and the entire letter you sent me was complete and utter bullshit, basically. And you know what? It's your company. You guys can do what you want, but just be honest about it, because this isn't about you guys appreciating freedom of speech or ideology. It's about the people on your platform having the right ideology. Now, to say I'm angry is a bit of an understatement. Friends of mine are being stalked and beat up. I'm being banned, censored, and attacked everywhere I go. I'm getting demonetized for being offensive, and most of my income has been taken away. And basically, the entire establishment, corporations, government, and media is against me and anyone who dares share my opinions. Hell, if Facebook is scared to ban me again because of the backlash they got last time, well, they just go ahead and ban the people who share my content. It's been a hell of a ride, but I will say I can't stay mad for long, because the whole thing is actually a bit hilarious when you really think about it. What they're doing here is they're trying to tire me out. I had people weeks ago telling me that they like my content, but I need to cool it with my opinions, because Patreon was going to shut me down, and I wasn't going to be able to do what I do for much longer. And that just so happens to be exactly what these corporate government progressives want. They want me to cool down. They want me to be a docile little travel vlogger that smiles and tells you everything is doing dandy, trust your government, trust their initiatives, buy this product, like and subscribe. And despite everything that has happened to me and all of their attempts to shut me up and others up, I'm still doing what I'm doing, and people are still sticking around and watching it. I have more support than ever right now. My friends who are also being demonetized and banned are still going. And people are after my PayPal, they're after my YouTube. I don't know how long that's gonna last. I don't know how long I'll get to keep these accounts. But the thing is, they can keep shutting me down wherever I go, and I'll keep popping up wherever they're not looking. My content will be re-uploaded, more free speech supporting sites will be created. They're not gonna be able to get rid of me. It's going to be a constant wild chase for them to shut down ideas that threaten theirs, and I'm not going to let them catch their breath. And even if they do manage to shut me up, they ban me on everything and I have no way to ever share my message again with or without income. It doesn't matter because people can even kill me, but they can't kill an idea. And after me, more people with dangerous ideas will rise up and keep speaking and take on that torch of free speech. So am I angry? Not so much anymore. In fact, it's kind of hysterical because progressives, you can keep trying, but you pushed your luck too far, and now the culture is headed in the other direction, and you are desperately clawing to shut up all those against you, and the reality is there's nothing you can do about it. Anyways, to those who have been supporting me through the high and the low points, I can't thank you enough. The support has been overwhelming and has helped me to just laugh in the face of all this craziness. And to my wonderful ex-Patreon subscribers, I'll figure something else out so I can still do the same exclusive live streams and the videos I was doing before. We had a lot of fun on my Patreon, and I'll make it work out. For now, in a grand act of maturity, I decided to go and buy patreonsucks.com, where you can go and sign up for the same reward tiers as my original Patreon account. That'll be the main hub until that site is either improved or something better comes along that replaces Patreon, and I've certainly heard some rumors that that's coming soon. Either way, I'm not going anywhere, and I appreciate the support from everyone. It's been absolutely amazing. So yesterday, Arnold Schwarzenegger, star of the Terminator franchise and two-time governor of California, made a pretty phenomenal statement referring to the protests at the Unite the Right event in Charlottesville. He argued that when dealing with bigotry and hatred, there are not two sides to the story. To put it simply, there was only one identifiable enemy and bad guy at Charlottesville. I'm sorry, but this is just ridiculously wrong. I'm not sure if Schwarzenegger is just virtue signaling or if he honestly doesn't know his history, but the reality is you can oppose Nazism, you can even be out on the streets protesting against it, and still be someone who represents a side of hatred and violence, especially considering many of these protesters under the flag of anti-fascism subscribe to a certain ideology that this painfully ignorant and hypocritical society we live in refuses to ever take action against, and that would be communism. Now, before people freak out and say stupid things like, wow, I can't believe you're trying to excuse Nazism by pointing out there were communists on the other side, which is something people have been yelling at me about on Twitter. Pointing out that both sides in a conflict can be prone to extremism and worshipping murderous dictators does not excuse the actions of the one that society judges to be worse. I honestly cannot fathom how people think that I'm condoning Nazism just because I acknowledge that there are more evils in the world than just Hitler. I'll give you a few examples of what actually condoning one side really looks like. Teaching it in universities as a celebrated ideology, selling shirts of its leaders in pop culture stores, or how about cheering it on in the mainstream media when its members are going around punching innocent people? Sound familiar to anyone? We all know that Nazis committed atrocities that should be opposed today, and that we never want to see the return of. The crimes of Hitler are repeatedly jammed into our heads as kids by the education system, as they should be. But why is it that the atrocities of communism are almost completely ignored by our teachers, and dismissed as just a blip in history by most? 100 million people perished under communist dictators in the last century, several times over the death count racked up by the Nazis in the Second World War. I think it's time for a little history lesson. Try to count up how many of these horrors you ever learnt about in school. Pol Pot's killing fields in Cambodia, 2.5 million dead. The North Korean gulag system. Hundreds of thousands of people are estimated to be imprisoned in horrible conditions right at this very moment. The Great Chinese Famine under Mao Zedong. 36 million people starved to death. The Holodomor famine in Soviet Ukraine. Between 7 to 10 million dead after food was withheld from them. Communism is messed up. Every single time someone has tried to implement a Marxist utopia, millions of people suffer and die. I'm not sure if young college students, the media, and half of the West today are ignorant, just trying to be edgy, or if they genuinely are just awful people, but I'm really hoping it's ignorance, because no one in their right mind should be celebrating the actions of communists, let alone identifying as one or defending them. You can rage in the comments as much as you want about how, Lauren, it wasn't real communism, but that won't change the fact that it results in that every single time. They say the mark of insanity is repeating the same thing again and again and again with the same result and yet expecting a different one. I'd have to agree, these communists are nuts. It's about damn time we start being consistent with our opposition to extremism. And I'm not talking about violent opposition, I'm talking about arguing against these bad ideas. If you start assaulting people because they disagree with you, you shouldn't be praised, you should be thrown in a cold, dark jail cell. All I'm saying is that life isn't a movie. There are barely ever clear-cut heroes and villains, but instead varying shades of gray. Boiling down everything in history and politics to a simple dichotomy of good and evil and ignoring nuances only ever leads to more extremism and violence. Look at the people who are getting stabbed and beat up just for being wrongly doxxed or having a fashy haircut. They aren't going to be joining your alleged anti-extremism squads anytime soon. Propping up communists disguised as civil rights activists won't prevent the rise of a murderous ideology, it'll just be one in another form. If there's one thing that I'm certain of, it's that pretending there is only one side of this will not stop a single damn problem.
Just alright.